Welcome to my channel, where the scariest stories come to life. Before we dive into today's chilling tale, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, so you never miss a story. Now, let's get into the horror. I was 23 years old and I'm 31 now. During that time I lived in Lancaster as I was studying at Lancaster University. For those who may not be familiar, Lancaster is a small and rather quaint town in the north of England. As a student, you could either live on the university campus or in private accommodation in the town. I had decided to live in a newly built renovated apartment in a nice side of town, and yes, it was very expensive. Sadly, I had already been studying for 2 years and had reached my third year. By this time I had grown accustomed to the layout of the town and felt comfortable and safe living there semi-independently with 2 other friends who were also studying at the university. Since my first year I had decided to improve my fitness by taking nightly runs around either the campus or the town. As we were living in the town center, by my third year I would run either with my housemate or alone. The important thing to note about Lancaster, and this will be important later, is that it is quite a large residential area that is hilly and far removed from the bustling center, which at that time was a hub for the students or the local northern folk, probably drinking in pubs or eating pies. Occasionally I would run with my housemate. However, I preferred to run alone and listen to some kind of heavy metal. I was a big fan of Deftones during that period of time. On this particular day, a chilly autumnal evening, I decided to run alone. It was about 8 p.m. and I had my earphones in. I had started to run up to the more isolated district that led to a very pretty residential area and a large green called Williamson Park. It had a butterfly museum on the top of a hill, and next to the park was a very large graveyard, the kind that is miles wide and had different areas, large yew trees, crumbling graves, and a crypt in the center overrun with leaves and ivy. What was especially creepy about this particular cemetery was that it had the ruin of an old mental asylum or hospital. At the other side you could actually sneak in if you walked across the width of the cemetery and crawled through a small hole in the fence that led to the asylum grounds. This was not advised though, as guard dogs roamed the derelict building. It was not a place that you wanted to be during the night. So I had made my way past Williamson Park and up to the entrance of the graveyard. Immediately my eyes were drawn to something small standing at the imposing gates of the graveyard. They were kind of tall black iron gates at the bottom of a little winding path. I felt a little apprehensive, but it wasn't unusual to see people walking their dogs out of the graveyard. So I started to slow my pace to a walk in the direction of the shape. As I drew nearer, I realized that the shape was a child, around 9 to 10 years old, and they were running towards me frantically. They looked panicked and scared, and I think that they were crying. I vividly remember that the girl was not wearing a coat, only a thin dress that would not be suitable for the harsh Lancastrian autumn. She asked me if I could help her. She was desperate and seemed to be frightened of something, and she kept looking back into the graveyard, which at this point was totally pitch black beyond the gates. I mean, there was absolutely no light beyond the path, as the graveyard was quite large. It was chilling to see the depth of the blackness and the vulnerable child standing at the mouth of the gate, helpless. I don't recall what the girl said exactly, but I offered to call the local police. I had typed 999 into my phone and had it on loudspeaker. The girl immediately changed. She was not happy about the fact that I was calling the police. That was clear. She stopped crying and seemed angry, almost demanding, and insisted that she did not need the police to help. I reassured her that it was best to inform them, even offered to walk her to the station, which was about 20 minutes back down the hill. And this is where the story gets weird and a little terrifying. The girl turned and ran back into the graveyard. She ran directly through the gates into the eerie blackness. She didn't turn back, just ran as quickly as possible until she had completely disappeared. It was then totally silent. I was spooked beyond belief, now standing in a darkened street completely alone. I had so many questions. Who was the girl? Why was she alone? Why was she scared of the police? Why wasn't she afraid of the dark? And who might she be running to or from? I turned and ran all the way back down the hill, not stopping until I had reached a well-lit built-up area. Safe to say, I didn't run on my own again at night. Wasn't exactly the most popular kid in high school. I was just this average girl, not cool enough to hang with the popular crowd but not quirky enough to get bullied either. Honestly, if you ask most of my classmates today, they probably wouldn't even remember me. I grew up in a big city, I won't say where, but think of places like Detroit, Chicago, or Philadelphia. I grew up in a place like that, and my neighborhood was this mix of faded brick buildings and concrete jungles. There was always noise, honking, horns, sirens, and stuff like that. It had its own kind of charm, but sometimes it felt a little heavy, and yeah, there was definitely a fair amount of crime. Like I said, I wasn't super popular. My claim to fame was that my dad owned a junkyard with an iron shredder. And it might sound a bit odd, but honestly, it was kind of fascinating. A few people wanted to come by just to watch that machine shred old washing machines and rusty bikes into tiny bits. The first time I saw it in action, I was about 10, and the noise was like thunder. I remember feeling scared, watching how the metal twisted and crumpled. It was oddly beautiful in this sort of destructive way. All the girls in school were crushing on this guy named Marco, and of course, I was too. He was a basketball star who worked out all the time, plus he always seemed super smart, like he had stocks figured out or something, and everyone knew he had some family problems, but he still radiated confidence. One night during a football game, he came over to talk to me, and my heart literally raced. I half expected someone to pinch me to wake up from this dream. He didn't say much though, he just said that he wanted to talk to me and asked where he could find me at halftime. I said we could meet at the front entrance. At halftime, we slipped away to his car and he said he wanted to go to McDonald's. That felt so random, but I wasn't going to complain. This was my first chance to hang out with Marco, and it was starting to feel almost like a date. While we were driving, he suddenly pulled over and asked if he could show me something. He took out a gun, and my heart dropped into my stomach. I was not ready to see that. He said, "I need you to get rid of this." Everything around me went blurry. When someone holds a gun in front of you, all rational thoughts vanish, and I was terrified. I didn't want to be in that situation, and I couldn't really say no because he was holding a gun. My mind raced with all the things that could go wrong, and it felt like the weight of the world rested on my shoulders. I didn't ask questions. I just nodded, hoping to make things better. He told me to text him later, saying it was nice seeing you at the game today after I got rid of it. We went through the McDonald's drive-thru, but I didn't have any appetite. That was seriously weird, and I almost felt like I was being kidnapped. In a way, I kind of was. He didn't force me to get in the car with him, but I couldn't really tell him to let me go either. It felt like I was being intimidated into being in his car. He gave me the gun and dropped me off at my car in the school parking lot, and we said our goodbyes. From there, I went to school and grabbed the keys to the junkyard, praying that my parents wouldn't catch me. Thankfully, they were upstairs and the keys were in the fridge, and I felt like I was living in some kind of bad movie. I drove to the junkyard, but then panic set in hard. What if opening the gate was too loud and someone heard me? What if an alarm went off? What if someone showed up while I was there? What if the gun got stuck in the shredder? I had never operated that thing alone. What if I accidentally hurt myself? What if I couldn't figure out how to operate the shredder in time? What if this whole plan backfired and made everything worse? I just knew this wasn't going to work out, so instead I went back to McDonald's, ordered a large meal because fries make everything better, and carefully slipped the gun into a bag with fries and a burger. I looked on Google Maps, found a park about 30 minutes away, and then drove there, trying to stay calm. When I got to the park, I felt strangely detached from everything around me. I tossed the McDonald's bag into a trash can and then sat on the bench with my heart racing while trying to think of what to say if someone asked what I was doing. If anyone had approached me that night and asked if I was okay, I would have just asked them to call an ambulance. I felt so guilty that I literally felt sick. I have no idea how long I spent trying to calm down, but eventually, I was ready to go home. Later on, I found out Marco's sister had gotten mixed up in something truly horrific that night. She was involved in a violent robbery where she had used a gun to threaten a store owner. The store owner had not cooperated with her, and she had beaten the man's head with the gun, leaving him bloodied and dazed on the floor. Thankfully, no one was killed, but the brutality of it all felt terrifying and sad. That victim was an old man. I was caught up in something way darker than I'd ever imagined. When Marco's sister was arrested and eventually charged, I was terrified someone would find out what I'd done and link it back to me. I felt like I was carrying around this heavy secret and I was suffocating. The thought of being questioned by the police, or worse, becoming a suspect haunted me, and I never brought up the incident. I saw Marco around school and made sure not to even make eye contact, and thankfully, I never heard anything more about it. The rumors faded and life went on. When girls talked about Marco, I said just enough to pretend like everything was normal. I still visit home occasionally and have seen Marco around. He's always surrounded by friends, laughing and carefree, but we never talk. It's terrifying how easily I was intimidated into participating in something so horrific, and each time I see him, it leaves me with a chill. Thanks for sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to give the video a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a terrifying tale. See you in the next one.